Usually, around New Year's, people tend to make New Year's resolutions, but I always kind of wait for my birthday. You can see here I made this journal on my 24th birthday in the hopes of trying to, I don't even know what. However, I never kind of stuck to it. And now, in a week's time, on the 2nd of April, I'm going to be 26. So it's time to turn over a new leaf, start a new page, and consider all the things I want to do in my 26th year. Reflecting back on things that I did last year, in this video I'm going to talk about 8 things I want to do in my 26th year. I'm going to use my Instagram, or namely my Bookstagram, to reflect on all the books I've read and the way they've shaped my life, and the way they have perhaps informed my decision of what I want to do this year. I started this Instagram account almost 2 months after my 25th birthday. And within that time, I documented lots of the books that I read in that year. And I documented some memories that I was fond of at the time. I was influenced to make this video by the idea of the Nakano Thrift Shop by Hiromi Kawakami, a book that I really enjoyed last year. One of my favourites, probably. And I'm using it now because this video is going to be deeply rooted in places and in people and in memories that I shared with loved ones in my 25th year. What I loved the most about the Nakano Thrift Shop was that each chapter was based around a specific item in the shop that our main character was working in. And she attached memories or moments to these items, and they then became attached to people. And the story was told in this really beautiful way where we learned the relationship of not only our main character and her love interest, but the relationship between the main character and the other people within this shop. And the way that it develops and is told is just so wonderful. It's little moments that you just catch every now and then, and it grows to make this whole complete story, which I just found really enjoyable. So for this video, I'm going to break down all the 8 things that I want to do in my 26th year and base them upon a memory of a book that I read in my 25th year, and kind of consider not only a reflection of how last year went for me, but what sort of things I would like to do in the future, and how perhaps I can learn from the books that I read and the sort of books that I should be reading in the future to help guide me in what I want to do. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and let's start with number 1. So for number 1, I have chosen this picture from Instagram when I posted about Never Let Me Go. And I've chosen to match this picture with this ambition to finish a second draft of a novel, because when I took this photo in particular, I was leaving Hong Kong for the second time. You can see I'm at Hong Kong International Airport, and I didn't read the book at this moment, but I think it was a sort of book that really sort of meant something to me at this moment, and that's why I took this picture. So it's not only the fact that it's the second time that I've left Hong Kong, it was because, finishing the second draft of a novel, it's all well and good finishing a first draft, like, yeah, I finished a novel. I've done it twice now, nearly 3 times. I've almost finished another one. But then I'm never good at finishing the second one. And I kind of feel like this was how my experience in Hong Kong was. I went to Hong Kong once for 2 years and finished and left. And I thought I had learned so much about that. And then I tried to do other things and whatnot, and things didn't work out the way I had wanted. And then I realised that perhaps I hadn't learned as much as I thought I had. And so I returned to Hong Kong for a second time, and I think in that final year and a half that I was there, I really learned probably the most. and it was a really great time. And I feel like, similar to Never Let Me Go, we're hearing the story from Kath as an adult, and it's not until she reunites with her friends as adults, that she begins to reflect on what happened when they were children. And it's through that reflection, and it's through kind of this second reconnection with these people that she kind of learns her position and like her past and the real meaning of it. So I attached this picture to finishing a second draft of a novel, because for me, I need to remember that doing that, completing a second draft of a novel, will truly make it so much better, and I will have learned so much by the end of that writing than I did by the end of writing a first draft. So yeah, that's something that I really am dead set on doing this year, and I hope I can hold myself accountable to it. So now let's move on to number 2. My second ambition, I have chosen to base it off this book, The Power by Naomi Alderman. Now, I chose this picture from Instagram because this was a book that I read with some colleagues when I was talking about books a lot. They didn't read so much, but they did read a bit, and they were interested in the books that I was interested in. So, like, as a group, we kind of decided to start a little book club, and it was at the end of the Bailey's Prize for women, and so I suggested to read this book, and the 4 of us did then go on to read it, and we all really enjoyed it, and it was nice to be able to talk to each other about it in person, and kind of like it was a little bit more immediate than perhaps it is on BookTube. So yeah, I want that experience again, because unfortunately we didn't do it. We didn't choose another book afterwards, but we were sending WhatsApp messages to each other like, oh, maybe we should like make it an annual thing, we read one book. So, but I would like to join a book club in the real world for that immediacy and for that kind of connection with people to talk about books. And I don't know about places in my area, so it might mean that I have to create one, but it's something that I'm certainly looking for and setting up if needs be. So now let's move on to number 3. So I feel this picture kind of says it all. Yes, my third ambition is to go back to take Spanish lessons. I really enjoy learning Spanish, but it's always been hit and miss. Like I'll do it for a couple of months, then stop for a few years, and then do it again for a couple of months. So my skills don't really increase so much. Now I chose this picture to match because I bought this book when I was in Buenos Aires, and yeah, it's kind of like, I think the ambition is to be able to read Harry Potter in Spanish. So that's definitely one that I need those Spanish lessons for. But also, Harry Potter, he has such potential with his magic, and it's not until he goes to Hogwarts and he learns. That's something that I think is important that gets missed out in a lot of books, is that learning period of how to tap into that potential. And I think it's something that I need to kind of remember, is that I'm not going to be fluent in Spanish just by taking a few lessons here, that I really need to dedicate myself. So I think during my 26th year, I want to really dedicate myself to learning Spanish, and who knows, perhaps I can actually finish reading Harry Potter. So now let's go on to the 4th one. So this one might seem a little bit of a strange choice, but I chose Some Prefer Nettles not really because of the moment that I took this photo, but more of the themes of this book. In this book, the main couple are having marital difficulties, and the man kind of connects with his father-in-law. And there's a really interesting take on East versus West in this book, and it's sort of like the Western Western penetration of idea upon Japan at this time in the 1920s, how it kind of affected the culture and the people, and how this sort of like assimilation process was happening. And so then once the main character connects with his stepfather and he learns more about the traditional Japanese culture, and specifically traditional like puppet theatre, he learns so much more about his own life and his own appreciation for his life and ultimately his wife. And it's not like a quick fix to marital problems, but it does kind of address perhaps why they were having these marital problems and ways of fixing it. Now, of course, I don't have any marital problems. I'm not married. But what I want this year is to kind of connect with something that like a different side of me, and more perhaps a more traditional side. And that's why I want to embroider just one piece of cloth. I don't want to give myself the ambition of learning how to embroider and completing X amount of things. I just want to do one because I know what I'm like, and if I set myself too high, I probably won't complete it. But my mum used to always embroider when I was younger, and I think I like it. Like, I like the visuals of embroidery, and I would like to kind of pick up just like a skill in something that I don't know before. And similar to some prefer Nettles, I think it's going to be nice to have that traditional skill to kind of connect with not only my mum, but also like my roots, I guess, and the country around me, and just to find a new way of expressing myself creatively. So now let's go on to number 5. Number 5, I've chosen to go on a bookish journey. And obviously the picture again is quite obvious here. Wayfarer by Alexandra Bracken. I took this photo in a really nice fishing village in Hong Kong. I was just sat on a terrace looking out at the houses on the stilts, drinking lavender tea, and had the book out, and I thought it was just like one of those peaceful moments when, you know, when you're traveling sometimes, it's not always about doing everything and seeing all the sights. The way that I think I prefer it is to kind of just taking my time, and sometimes it is just a case of sitting in a cafe and watching the world go by. Even though you can do that at home, there's always something very different when you're abroad about that feeling, and you don't feel like you have any stresses or pressures because you're not at home, and you don't have to worry about handing in stuff for a meeting or whatever. But yeah, I want to go on a bookish journey. Wayfarer, she kind of journeys through time and different places, and it's something that I want to do. Things have cropped up recently in my life, and I'm returning to England now, and I think whilst I'm in England, I'm in such a wonderful part of the UK. I'm from Devon, and Devon and Cornwall, there's so much around there and so much history, and so many like authors have been inspired by places there or have grown up there and written about those places. So I think I want to explore my home county through these famous authors or these famous inspirations, and kind of go to these places and see more about how other people were influenced, and see more about my home history, I guess, and to go on this bookish journey. So now let's go on to number 6. So The Life of a Stupid Man. I really enjoyed this book. It's an extract from a larger book, but I think the writer is just so relatable. He's not a perfect man. He has made so many mistakes, but he is talented, and to an extent I got a bit fed up with him every now and then, but other parts of the book I really enjoyed, and I liked his writing style, even though of course it's translated. But I chose this one because it kind of helps me to feel like every now and then it gives me that reminder to just be who I am and make the videos that I want to make, and then only then will I feel like I deserve the 500 subscribers that I want to get within the next year. I don't want to make a video just for the purpose of going viral to get subscribers who might not even then watch any of my future videos. I want 500 subscribers who enjoy what I create, who discuss things and books with me, and that I enjoy creating things I'm passionate about for them. So this is the book that kind of will be one that I might dip in and out of again during my 26th year, just for that reminder to be who I am, and, you know, flaws included. So now let's move on to number 7. I've chosen this picture, The Book of Descent, because for me, I haven't read it in completion. It's one of those books that you can just dip in and out of, choose parts, read a little page here and there, and there's no narratives, just simple quotes throughout history of people dissenting, and it's people who have tried to revolt against powers that are pressuring them to be something that they don't want to be or they cannot physically be. So it's really inspiring, and I've chosen this book to go on with my next ambition to complete a personal cultural analysis, because, you know, I would like to make a business out of what I do, this cultural analysis, but in the UK specifically, it's not something I don't think is quite valued yet, especially under a Tory government. So I think what I want to do is I want to do a personal cultural analysis on something that I want to analyse. That way I'm not forced by other pressures to analyse what needs to be analysed for a business per se. So by doing what I want to do, it kind of, not only will it be something that I can use in a portfolio, but it's something that kind of gives me that room to explore themes and topics that I personally want to explore without the pressures of a horrible company that I'm working for, you know, just because I need the money. So unfortunately, the way that the UK is at the moment, I won't always have the freedom of doing what I want to. So I think using this 26th year, whilst I am still studying, to do something that I truly am passionate for, could be just that step of my realising what I might want to do, what I have to do, but then also what I can do. And perhaps that could be something that I could show future employers to be like, I know you want me to do this, but actually this is what I'm good at. So hopefully, you know, it's my little form of dissent against the Tories. So now let's move on to the final one. For this one, I've chosen The Little Buddhist Monk by Suza Ira. And I've chosen this book because obviously he's an author that I discovered last year from a cultural background very different to mine. But he writes about, well, this book in particular is about how different cultures have different imaginaries of other cultures. And so it's all well and good for me to kind of consider what other cultures are like or what the people kind of find, but I won't truly know, it'll just be my imaginary. So I won't know until I've read, perhaps from that perspective, and that's something that I want to do. So I've said I want to discover 12 new authors to me, and from 12 different countries and from very different cultural backgrounds. And it doesn't have to be, perhaps, you know, nationality is different, but, you know, a different cultural background. It could be somebody who has been in extreme poverty. Like I have been fortunate enough to not be in a position of poverty, but, you know, that's a cultural difference. So it's not always based around ethnicity. So it's something that I would like to learn more about and see more about. And I've given myself 12 authors from 12 different countries, and that means one a month, which I hopefully should be able to manage. And I'll always be looking for recommendations if any of you have them. So they are the 8 things that I want to do in my 26th year. And I'm hoping that this video will kind of hold me accountable to that. And I will definitely be keeping you updated. So perhaps next year, on my 27th birthday, I can release a video to tell you how I did.